Hey, this is Chad with Drawn and Cornered. I'm realizing just now that I've been doing this all wrong with my calls to action at the end of the video. If you like news, daily analysis, subscribe to the channel, hit that thumbs up if you like the specific video, it helps us out, and leave a comment if you have any questions or think I'm insane. So here we go. Today's three stories. Now, the big one is what's going on in the Democratic Party between the more progressive faction and the more moderate faction. Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema have opposed the $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill that's been proposed by Democrats. They're not fans of it. Their constituents are not fans of it. It contains a lot of things that sit outside of what you would typically look at for reconciliation, which is a budgetary issue. So there's massive expansions in different entitlement programs. There's daycare in there. There's everything you could imagine as on the slate for Joe Biden's agenda is in that $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill. Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema have agreed already to vote for the bipartisan, let's call it $1.5 trillion infrastructure bill. Now, this is the one that the Republicans have come in and also this is more streamlined specifically for infrastructure type stuff. There's a few outside elements, like depending on whether or not you qualify broadband as infrastructure, but things like that. That is the bill that moderates and Republicans have come together and said that they're going to do. Now, the issue becomes that Manchin and Sinema and a couple of other more moderate Democrats have said they will not talk about the reconciliation bill until a vote on the infrastructure bill is done, the bipartisan infrastructure bill. The problem is that the reconciliation bill, which progressives say they won't touch the infrastructure bill until the reconciliation bill is voted on, that reconciliation bill is not going to be ready for next week's vote on the infrastructure bill. So it's possible that progressives will just tank the entire thing. Joe Biden said that, hey, let's just get done what we can get done while we can get it done. He's just trying to push agenda as much as possible. Well, Kristen Sinema over the weekend in a private phone call, which, so we have what we have, but take it with a grain of salt, said essentially, if this isn't done in the next week, if we don't get this infrastructure bill, the bipartisan bill, taken care of in the next week, everything else is dead. It's not going any further. And he has to have all those votes because of the 50-50 split in the Senate. So this is a must. It has to happen. So what you're going to see over the course of this week is a ton of wrangling to try and bring Sinema and Manchin on board, to try and push that reconciliation bill a little bit faster, to try and tell progressives like, hey, we're close on this, but you have to be able to vote on this one first. Progressives are worried that if they vote on the $1.5 trillion infrastructure bill that's bipartisan, there'll be really no leverage for the $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill, which nobody needs, nobody wants. It's way overblown. It's super, super crazy. I mean, it's a wish list from the heavens for progressive agenda. So unless they can hold something else hostage, they're not going to get that. And it seems like there's the potential that they might be able to hold the bipartisan bill hostage. So we'll see how that plays out. It will also be very, very informative to see where Joe Biden comes down on this. Because if Joe Biden tells his party, hey, we need to come together on the bipartisan bill and do this, he'll sound more like a moderate. If he holds tight to trying to get everything he possibly can into this reconciliation bill, he'll be supremely progressive. So he has a choice here also. And this will be indicative of where he sees his presidency going, which I'm super excited about because nobody has any idea. Just as a quick catch-up, Afghanistan still going on, border crisis still going on, economy still having difficulties, adding just a few extra jobs last week, and unemployment claims still going out, people still complaining that they can't get good people in there, blah, 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 blah. Still happening. Just so you know, even though the news cycle has sort of moved on, there are still Americans stranded in Afghanistan. There are still awful things happening there, and seemingly nobody cares about it anymore. The second thing I wanted to get into was the complete non-story that was Justice for J6 rally. Now, everybody was packed to the gills for this. The Capitol Police were ready to go. There was tons of security in place. Fences were up. Razor wire was up. for what was supposed to be the second January 6th. And it ended up being almost nobody there, super small. I believe there were more cops than there were protesters, so it turned into really nothing. But it's important for a couple of reasons. One, even Trump, who's been pretty hard on this whole steal the election issue and all the fraud and blah, 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 all that stuff that didn't actually happen, those lies, the election lie, he's been huge on. He told people not to show up for this thing because it felt like a setup, which I think is telling that apparently the organizer of this also didn't want to be attached to Trump. So Republicans are scared to go out in big groups right now because of the fact that all it takes is one single pop off and we have big issues. Now, this is totally different, obviously, than last summer where Black Lives Matter riots routinely ended in some level of violence. And now Republicans have to know that there's nothing that can be done. They cannot have an outbreak like January 6th again. There cannot be bottles thrown. There cannot be cops attacked. There cannot be windows broken. Or we run the risk of losing significant elements of our freedoms in that process, or further plunging the party into this really decaying area that will always be slighted for good reason at that point, and we don't want that to happen. So you'll see those rallies and everything definitely limited in the future. Last story, and probably pretty terrible, though not a surprise to anybody, is the authorities seemingly have found Gabby Petito's body. They said they found a body consistent with her description, so it sounds like they just haven't specifically ID'd it, like parents haven't seen it or they haven't seen dental records or something, but they found her. She is dead. This is going to put the boyfriend on front and center to be found. Apparently he's holed up somewhere in Florida on like a 25,000 acre reserve of some sort. It sounds like the Everglades. I don't know if he's in the Everglades, but they have not found him yet. He seems in hiding, which also doesn't speak highly of his innocence in this. It seems like he's probably guilty. They had some sort of altercation before that was caught by police officers' body cams just a few days prior to her disappearance. So seems like a murder, feels like a murder. He's running like it's a murder. They found a body like it's a murder. So this seems like this is going to go down as a murder whenever they find him. It's not a huge case. I mean, it's just it's a murder between two people that happens in America all the time. I think it became a national news story because the father was so compelling, wanting to find her, and that seems like the sort of heartache that any parent can really understand. But it's an awful story. It's a terrible story. Good-looking girl, so it doesn't help that she's going to be splashed all across the news for a while. So it's a terrible story, and seemingly she met a pretty awful end, and the boyfriend will get his comeuppance as soon as they can find him. But that will be what you hear about today. You'll see that picture a lot. So just to get that out to you. That's everything. Any questions, any comments? If you think I'm totally off my gourd, leave a comment down below. Thank you very much for watching. This is Chad with Drawn and Cornered. I'll see you tomorrow.